The council chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive ring of metal and glass that held the fate of 1,000 worlds. Inside, beings from across the galaxy gathered to discuss matters of war and peace. Some had scales, some had fur, and some were just clouds of gas held together by energy fields. They all had one thing in common. They looked down on humanity. Ambassador Jiwoo sat in the human section, a small corner that seemed to shrink every year. Her dark eyes watched the proceedings without expression, though inside, anger burned hot and steady. She had been doing this job for 12 years now, and every day was the same. The aliens talked. The aliens laughed. And when humans spoke, nobody listened. Today was worse than usual. The Drexian hegemony had taken 3 human colony worlds. Just taken them. Their ships had arrived, their soldiers had landed, and they had planted their flags. When the human colonists protested, the Drexians had simply moved them to camps and told them to be quiet. Jiwoo stood to speak. Her translator device hummed to life, carrying her words to every being in the chamber. The Drexian hegemony has violated every law of this council, she said. Her voice was steady and calm. They have seized sovereign human territory. They have imprisoned innocent civilians. We demand immediate sanctions and the return of our worlds. The chamber fell silent for exactly 3 seconds. Then the laughter began. It started with the Vren ambassador, a creature that looked like a giant mantis made of chrome. Its clicking sounds translated as amused chittering. The humans are upset again, it said. How adorable. Other voices joined in. The Keltharian representative, a blob of purple flesh with too many eyes, wobbled with what passed for laughter among its kind. Perhaps if humanity had a real military, they would not need to beg for help. Jiwoo remained standing. She had heard worse. Much worse. This council exists to protect all member species, she said. Not just the strong ones. The Drexian ambassador rose. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and black eyes that never blinked. His species had conquered 40 worlds before joining the council. Ambassador Jiwoo, he said, and his tone made her name sound like an insult. Your species has been part of this council for 73 years. In that time, you have contributed nothing. Your military is a joke. Your technology is borrowed. Your only skill seems to be complaining. More laughter echoed through the chamber. Jiwoo looked around at the hundreds of aliens who filled the seats. Not one of them stood to defend humanity. Not one spoke against the Drexian theft. They just watched and laughed. We will file a formal protest, Jiwoo said quietly. She sat down. There was no point in saying more. The vote would go against humanity, just like it always did. The Drexians would keep the colonies, and the galaxy would keep thinking of humans as weak. Commander Taemin watched the proceedings from his ship, the Earth vessel Horizon's Edge. It was one of humanity's largest warships, which meant it was small compared to most alien cruisers. He sat in his command chair and felt the familiar weight of frustration settle on his shoulders. They're laughing at us again, sir, his tactical officer said. The young man's hands were clenched into fists. I know, Taemin replied. He was 53 years old and had spent 30 of those years in space. He had watched humanity get pushed around for decades. He had swallowed his pride 1,000 times. But every time he swallowed, the anger grew larger inside him. His communication panel blinked. A private message from Earth, heavily encrypted. Taemin opened it and read the short text. His heart began to beat faster. Sir? His tactical officer asked. Are you all right? Taemin looked at his crew. Good people, all of them. They had joined Earth's defense forces knowing they would never get respect from the aliens. They served anyway because someone had to. I'm fine, he said. Maintain position. Wait for further orders. Back on Earth, in a facility buried 3 kilometers below the surface, Dr. Yoonji stood before a massive holographic display. The display showed a map of human-controlled space, but it also showed something else. Thousands of small icons, each one representing a ship. Ships the aliens did not know existed. How long until they're all in position? She asked. The technician next to her checked his console. 18 days. All fleets report ready status. We're just waiting for the word. Yoonji nodded. She was 40 years old and had spent her entire adult life working on this project. The project that would change everything. The project the aliens thought was impossible. Her secure phone rang. She answered it and listened for a moment. Understood, she said. I'll begin final preparations. She hung up and turned to her team. It's happening. The council just rejected our petition about the colonies. The Drexians are getting bold. Command thinks they'll issue an ultimatum within the month. Good, the technician said quietly. Then he looked embarrassed. I mean, not good that they're threatening us, but good that we'll finally— I know what you mean, Yunji interrupted. We've been waiting a long time. She pulled up another display, this one showing weapon systems that human science had declared impossible 15 years ago. Now they were real. Now they were ready. Send a message to all division heads. Project Genesis enters final phase. Begin moving assets into attack positions but maintain stealth protocols. The aliens can't know we're coming. Captain Hyunwoo paced the bridge of his destroyer, the Soul's Pride. At 28, he was young for a ship commander, but he had earned his rank through skill and determination. His crew was small, only 30 people, but they were efficient. Captain, we're receiving fleet-wide orders, his communication officer said. Eyes only command level. Hyunwoo opened the message on his private screen. His eyes widened as he read. Then he read it again to make sure he understood. Plot a course, he said quietly. Take us to rendezvous point Gamma 7. Silent running. Tell the crew nothing yet, sir. The communication officer asked. What's happening? Hyunwoo looked at the young woman. She deserved to know. They all did, but orders were orders. Soon, he said. Very soon, everything changes. 3 days later, the Drexian hegemony made their announcement. It came during another council session, with Jiwoo once again sitting in humanity's small corner. The Drexian ambassador stood and addressed the chamber. Humanity has become a burden to this council, he declared. They occupy valuable space. They consume resources. They contribute nothing. Therefore, the Drexian hegemony demands that humanity cede 5 additional colony worlds to our control. They have 2 weeks to comply. If they refuse, we will take the colonies by force, and this time we will not be gentle with the human populations. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some aliens looked uncomfortable. Most looked indifferent. A few looked pleased. Jiwoo stood slowly. Every eye in the chamber turned to her. She stood in silence for a long moment, letting the weight of the threat settle over everyone. Then she spoke. Ambassador, you have made your position clear, she said. Her voice was still calm, still steady. Humanity will consider your ultimatum. We will provide our answer in 2 weeks. The Drexian ambassador looked surprised. He had expected begging. He had expected protests. Instead, the human just accepted his terms. Very well, he said. 2 weeks. Choose wisely, Ambassador. The hegemony's patience has limits, Jiwoo smiled. It was not a warm smile. So does ours, she said quietly. So quietly that most of the chamber did not hear. But the Drexian ambassador heard. Something in that smile made him uncomfortable, though he did not know why. As the session ended, Jiwoo returned to her quarters and composed a simple message to Earth. It contained only 2 words. Do it. Across human space, in the dark places between stars where sensors could not reach, something stirred. Ships that had been hiding for years began to move. Weapon systems came online. Crews that had trained in secret prepared for battle. And in the command centers deep below Earth's surface, old soldiers smiled for the first time in decades. The aliens thought humanity's patience came from weakness. They were about to learn the truth. Patience was not weakness. Patience was strategy, and humanity's strategy was about to shake the stars themselves. 73 years ago, humanity had celebrated. The Galactic Council had finally accepted Earth as a member species. Ships had been sent to welcome them. Treaties had been signed. Humans had looked up at the stars and felt for the first time that they were part of something larger. The celebration had lasted exactly 6 months. Then reality set in. Admiral Young-soo remembered that time clearly. He had been a young officer then, fresh out of the academy, proud to serve on one of Earth's first deep space vessels. He had been so excited to meet other species, to learn from civilizations thousands of years old. Instead, he had learned a harder lesson. The aliens did not see humans as equals. They saw them as primitives. As children playing with technology they barely understood. Every request for help was denied. Every proposal was dismissed. Every time humans spoke in the council, the response was the same. Laughter. Young-soo sat in his office now, 73 years later. His hair was white, his face lined with age, but his mind was still sharp. On his desk sat a photograph from those early days. Young officers smiling at the camera, believing in a future of cooperation and friendship. Most of those officers were dead now. Some had died in border skirmishes that the council never bothered to investigate. Some had simply grown old waiting for respect that never came. "Admiral, the final fleet reports are in," his aide said, entering the office. "All groups are at full readiness." Young-Soo nodded. "Good, how many ships total?" 3,214 combat vessels. Not counting support craft, transports, or the reserve fleets, 3,000 ships. Young-Soo allowed himself a small smile. When he had started Project Genesis 40 years ago, people had thought he was insane. Build a secret fleet? Hide it from alien sensors that could detect a mouse from orbit? Impossible, they said. But Young-Soo had been patient, and he had been smart. The key had been Engineer Da-Yoon's breakthrough. She had been working on stealth technology for the civilian sector when Young-Soo recruited her. At first she had refused. "You want me to hide entire warships?" she had asked. "That's fantasy. 40 years ago, faster than light travel was fantasy," Young-Soo had replied. "We learned it from the aliens. Now we'll improve on it." Da-Yoon had taken the challenge, and 10 years later she had delivered. Not traditional stealth, which the aliens could eventually detect, but something new. Ships that existed in a quantum state, flickering in and out of normal space too quickly for sensors to track. Ships that left no heat signature because they vented into dimensional pockets. Ships that were, for all practical purposes, invisible until they chose to be seen. The aliens never suspected. Why would they? Humanity was weak. Humanity was stupid. Humanity could barely maintain the outdated ships the Council had sold them at inflated prices. While the aliens laughed, Da-Un built shipyards in the dark spaces between stars. While the aliens mocked, human crews trained in silence. While the aliens celebrated their superiority, humanity prepared for war. General Seok-jin had been in charge of recruitment and training. It had been his job to find people willing to serve in secret, knowing they might never receive recognition. Knowing their families could not know what they did. Knowing they would spend years, maybe decades, preparing for a war that might never come. "We need volunteers," Young-Soo had told him 35 years ago. "People who understand that serving humanity means more than medals and parades." "How many people?" Seok-jin had asked. "Millions. We need crews for thousands of ships. We need soldiers, engineers, support staff, and we need them to keep quiet about it." Seok-jin had thought the task impossible, but he had tried anyway. He had started with the colonies, places far from Earth where people understood that the Council did not care about human lives. He had found farmers who had lost their land to alien expansion. He had found miners whose claims had been stolen. He had found families who had watched alien ships fly over their homes, knowing that if war came, the Council would not lift a finger to help them. These people had not needed much convincing. They joined Project Genesis by the thousands, then by the millions. They went to secret bases and learned to fight. They trained on simulators that recreated every known alien ship design. They studied battles that had occurred across the galaxy for the past 1,000 years. "Know your enemy," Seok-jin had told every recruit. "The aliens think they know war. They've been fighting each other for centuries. But they fight the same way every time. They follow the same tactics, the same strategies. We're going to do something they never expect. We're going to innovate." And humanity had innovated, because that was what humans did best. They adapted. They learned. They took what already existed and made it better. Scientist Hae-won had been the first to suggest weaponizing humanity's unique biology. "We evolved on Earth," she had explained to the Research Council. "A high-gravity world with a poisonous atmosphere and extreme weather. We're built different from the aliens. Stronger bones, faster reflexes, better endurance. We should use that. The aliens flew ships designed for their comfortable homeworlds, ships with standard gravity, standard pressure, standard everything. Human ships were different. They used Earth normal gravity, which was crushing to most aliens. They pulled maneuvers that would kill alien pilots through sheer G-forces. Human soldiers wore armor that would buckle most alien skeletons. But the real innovation was in the AI systems. The aliens had artificial intelligence, but they feared it. They put limits on it. Safety protocols, rules that prevented AI from making decisions too quickly or too independently. Humans had no such fears. Human AI was adaptive, creative, and terrifyingly effective. Each ship had an AI that could learn and evolve during combat. The AIs talked to each other, sharing information in microseconds. coordinating attacks with precision no biological crew could match. "It's not just about building better weapons," Haywan had said. "It's about building smarter weapons. Weapons that think." The years had passed. Administrations on Earth changed. Counselors came and went. But Project Genesis continued in the shadows. It grew, it evolved. It waited. Young-Soo had known it would take time. Real preparation could not be rushed. So humanity had waited. They had smiled at the aliens. They had accepted insults. They had watched their colonies get taken, their people get bullied, their dignity get crushed, and every insult, every theft, every act of cruelty had been recorded, documented, saved as evidence of the Council's corruption. "Why do we keep records?" A young officer had once asked Young-Soo. "Why not just build the fleet and use it?" "Because when the time comes," Young-Soo had replied, "we want the galaxy to know why we did what we did. We want them to see that we gave them 73 years to treat us fairly. We want history to know that we tried peace first." Now sitting in his office, Young-Soo opened his computer and accessed the classified files. 73 years of data. Every council session where humanity was mocked. Every territorial dispute decided against human interests. Every time the council had failed to protect human lives, the evidence was overwhelming. And soon the galaxy would see it all. His phone rang. It was a secure line, one that only a handful of people had access to. Young-Soo answered. "Yes?" "This is Ambassador Jiwoo. The Drexians have issued their ultimatum. 2 weeks. Command wants to proceed with Genesis." Young-Soo felt his heart rate increase. After 40 years of preparation, the moment had arrived. "Do we have authorization from Earth?" "All governments have voted yes. The order is official. We're going to war." Young-Soo closed his eyes for a moment. He thought of all the people who had worked on Genesis, the engineers who had designed impossible ships, the scientists who had broken the laws of physics, the soldiers who had trained in secret for decades, the families who had sacrificed everything for a dream of justice. "Tell General Seok-jin to begin fleet movements," he said. "Tell Daewon to drop stealth protocols on my command. Tell the fleet commanders that it's time to show the galaxy what humanity has built." "Understood," Jiwoo said. "One more thing, Admiral. The Vren ambassador said something today. He called humans the patient pets. He said we're too cowardly to fight back." Young-Soo laughed. It was a sound without humor. The Vren will learn soon enough. Patience is not cowardice. It's discipline, and discipline wins wars. He hung up and stood. His legs ached. His back hurt. He was too old for this, really. But he had started this project, and he would see it through to the end. Young-Soo walked to his window and looked out at the night sky. Somewhere out there, hidden in the dark, 3,000 human warships waited for his command. Ships that would change everything. Ships that would remind the galaxy why you should never mistake patience for weakness. He picked up his command tablet and entered his authorization codes. Then he typed a simple message that would be sent to every fleet commander, every ship captain, every soldier who had waited so long for this moment. The message contained 3 words: Project Genesis active. Across human space, invisible ships began to move. They glided through the darkness like sharks through deep water, silent and deadly. They took up positions around every major alien world, around every military base, around every shipyard and command center. The aliens still did not see them. The aliens still laughed. The aliens still thought humanity was weak. The 2 weeks passed slowly. Across human space, people held their breath. Everyone knew something was coming, though most civilians did not know what. They just knew that for the first time in 73 years, their leaders looked confident instead of defeated. The Drexian hegemony prepared for an easy victory. They assembled their war fleet in the Talos system, just outside human territory. 200 ships, enough to crush any resistance humanity could offer. Or so they thought. Admiral Jae-hyun stood on the bridge of the Earth vessel Indomitable, humanity's new flagship. At 45 years old, he had spent 20 years training for this moment. He looked at the main display, which showed the Drexian fleet gathering like wolves around a wounded animal. "How long until they're all in position?" he asked. 6 hours, his tactical officer replied. "They're still bringing in reinforcements. They want to make this overwhelming." Jae-hyun smiled. "Let them gather. The more ships they bring, the bigger our message will be." Around him, the bridge crew worked in silence. They were professionals, every one of them. They had trained on simulators that recreated every possible combat scenario. But this was real. This was the moment that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Drexian flagship," the communication officer said. "They're demanding our surrender." "Put it on screen." The Drexian commander appeared on the display. He was old for his species, with gray skin that had darkened to almost black. His eyes held no mercy. "Human vessels, this is Commander Vrel of the Drexian Imperial Fleet. You are outmatched and outgunned. Surrender now and we will be merciful. Resist and we will destroy every human ship in this sector. You have 1 hour to decide." Jae-hyun stepped forward so the Drexian could see him clearly. "Commander Vrel, this is Admiral Jae-hyun of Earth's United Defense Fleet. We decline your offer. Instead, we have a counter-proposal. Leave human space immediately or face the consequences." Vrel stared at him for a moment. Then he began to laugh. It was a harsh, grating sound. "You have 30 ships in this sector. I have 200. And you threaten me? The rumors are true. Humans are insane." "You have 200 ships that you can see," Jae-hyun corrected. "But there are many things you cannot see, Commander. Perhaps you should look more carefully." He nodded to his tactical officer. The officer pressed a button, and across human space something impossible happened. 3,000 ships appeared from nowhere. They did not emerge from faster-than-light jumps. They did not decloak like traditional stealth vessels. They simply materialized, as if they had been there all along but invisible. One moment, the Drexian fleet was alone. The next moment, they were surrounded by human warships that dwarfed anything the galaxy had seen from Earth before. On every alien view screen, in every sensor display, the impossible became real. Human ships. Thousands of them, each one broadcasting identification codes that marked them as Earth vessels. The Galactic Council chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives from 100 species shouted questions. Ambassador Jiwoo sat quietly in humanity's corner, watching the aliens panic. She had waited a long time for this moment. The council speaker, a floating jellyfish-like creature called a Mothran, called for silence. "Ambassador Jiwoo, what is the meaning of this? Where did these ships come from? This is a violation of treaty." Jiwoo stood slowly, every eye in the chamber fixed on her. "Speaker, I am confused. Which treaty did we violate? The treaty that limits military buildup? We signed no such treaty. The council refused to allow humanity to join the Mutual Defense Pact, remember? You said we were too weak to contribute. But you have thousands of ships." The Vren ambassador clicked. "Where were they built? Where were they hidden?" "In our territory," Jiwoo replied calmly. "In systems we control. Using resources we mined. With technology we developed. All perfectly legal. We simply chose not to tell you about them." "Why?" the Mothran speaker asked. "Why hide such a fleet?" Jiwoo's eyes grew cold. "Because for 73 years this council has treated humanity like children. Like pets, like jokes. We tried cooperation. We tried diplomacy. We tried following the rules. And what did it get us? Mockery, theft, threats of extermination. So we decided to take a different approach. We decided to make ourselves impossible to ignore." Back in the Talos system, Commander Vrel stared at the display in disbelief. His 200 ships were surrounded by 1,500 human vessels. Each one was larger than his flagship. Each one showed weapon systems that his computers could not identify. "This is impossible," he whispered. "Humanity doesn't have this kind of technology." "Admiral Jae-hyun to Drexian Fleet," the human's voice came over the communication channel. "You are surrounded. Power down your weapons and engines. Surrender and you will be treated fairly. Resist and we will show you what humanity has learned in 73 years of watching the galaxy fight." Vrel felt rage burning in his chest. He had conquered 40 worlds. He had never surrendered, not once. "All ships target the human flagship. Fire at will." The Drexian fleet opened fire. 200 ships unleashed their weapons at once. Energy beams, missiles, plasma bolts, all converging on the Indomitable. The weapons hit nothing. The Indomitable had moved, impossibly fast, to a position 3 kilometers away. The Drexian fire hit empty space. How? Vrel gasped. Then the human ships returned fire. It was not like any battle the Drexians had seen before. Human weapons did not simply shoot. They adapted. They learned. Missiles that could change course mid-flight. Energy beams that split and multiplied. weapons that seemed to predict where enemy ships would move and fired at those positions before the ships arrived. Lieutenant Su Min sat in the cockpit of her fighter, the Dragon's Tooth. She was 26 years old and had been flying combat simulators since she was 18, but simulations were nothing compared to real combat. "Gold Squadron, form on me," she commanded. "We're going for their command ship." 12 fighters formed up behind her. They were small craft, barely 20 meters long, but they moved like lightning. Su Min pushed her throttle forward and felt the G-forces press her into her seat. 9 G's enough to kill most alien pilots. For a human raised on Earth, it was just uncomfortable. The Drexian point defense systems opened fire, filling space with bullets and energy. Su Min dove through the storm of fire, her hands dancing on the controls. Her fighter's AI helped, calculating trajectories and suggesting maneuvers, but the final decisions were hers. She saw an opening. 3 seconds to thread the needle between 2 Drexian cruisers. She took it, pulling her fighter through a corkscrew turn that would have ripped an alien vessel apart. Her wingman followed, then the rest of the squadron. They emerged behind the Drexian flagship. Su Min locked onto the ship's engines and fired. Her missiles were small, but they were smart. They hit the engine ports and burrowed inside before detonating. The Drexian flagship shuddered. Its engines died. It began to drift, powerless. "Gold Squadron, return to formation," Su Min ordered. "Let's find another target." The battle lasted 18 minutes. When it ended, the Drexian fleet was destroyed. Not damaged, not defeated. Destroyed. 197 ships reduced to debris. 3 ships survived only because they surrendered immediately when the fighting started. Commander Vrel sat in his ruined command center, fires burning around him, and stared at the screen where Admiral Jae-hyun's face appeared. "Commander, the battle is over," Jae-hyun said. His voice held no triumph, no gloating. "Just fact. Your fleet is gone. We are sending rescue ships for your survivors. We will treat them well. But you need to understand something. This is not humanity being cruel. This is humanity being merciful. We could have destroyed you all. We chose not to. Why?" Vrel asked. His voice was broken. "Why show mercy? Because unlike some species, we remember what it means to be civilized," Jae-hyun replied. "We did not want this war. You forced it on us. But even in war, we will not become monsters. We will show the galaxy that strength and honor can coexist." The transmission ended. Vrel sat in silence, feeling the weight of defeat crushing him. His species had thought humans were weak. They had been so very wrong. Minister Dong-hyun addressed the Galactic Council from Earth. He appeared on every screen, in every council chamber, speaking directly to the representatives of 1,000 worlds. "For 73 years, humanity has endured your contempt," he said. His voice was hard as steel. "We asked for fairness. You gave us mockery. We asked for protection. You gave us indifference. We asked for respect. You gave us laughter. So we stopped asking. We took matters into our own hands." He pulled up a display showing the destroyed Drexian fleet. "This is what happens when you push humanity too far. We did not start this war. The Drexians did when they stole our colonies, but we will finish it. And when we do, the galaxy will understand something important. Humanity's patience was not weakness. It was preparation, and our preparation is complete." The council chamber was silent. Every being watched the human minister with new eyes. Eyes that held something they had never felt before when looking at humans. Fear. "We demand the following," Dong-hyun continued. "All human colonies will be returned immediately. All human prisoners will be released. The Drexian hegemony will pay reparations." The Drexian hegemony refused to surrender. Pride, it seemed, mattered more than wisdom. Within days of the Talos system defeat, they called upon their allies. The Keltharian collective joined them first, bringing 300 warships. Then came the Vren swarm with 500 vessels. Finally, the Torgan Empire added 200 heavy cruisers to the alliance. More than 1,000 alien ships prepared to crush humanity once and for all. They would teach these upstart humans a lesson about the natural order of things. They would show the galaxy that old power still ruled. They were wrong. General Seok Jin coordinated Earth's response from the command center deep below the planet's surface. Massive holographic displays showed every fleet movement, every ship position, every battle in real time. He had waited 35 years for this. Now the waiting was over. "The Keltharians are moving on the Nova Sol colony," his tactical officer reported. 300 ships. They'll arrive in 4 hours. How many defenders do we have there? Seokjin asked. 50 ships. But Admiral Youngsu requests permission to spring the trap. Seokjin smiled. Permission granted. Let's show them what a real ambush looks like. Commander Taemin had been waiting at Nova Sol for 2 weeks. His 50 ships hung in orbit around the colony world, looking vulnerable and exposed. The perfect bait. His crew knew what was coming. They had practiced this scenario 100 times. Keltharian fleet dropping out of faster-than-light travel, his sensor officer announced. 300 ships, just like intelligence predicted. Taemin watched the display. The Keltharian vessels were massive, each one shaped like a bloated purple sphere covered in weapons. They advanced in a tight formation, confident in their numerical superiority. Let them get close, Taemin ordered. Wait for my signal. The Keltharian commander sent a transmission. Human ships, you are outnumbered 6-1. Surrender your colony and we will allow you to retreat. Fight and we will destroy you. This is Commander Taemin, he replied. We will not surrender. If you want this world, come and take it. The Keltharians opened fire. Energy weapons lit up space, converging on the human fleet. Taemin's ships scattered, using evasive maneuvers to avoid the worst of the barrage. 2 human destroyers took damage, but their shields held. Now, Taemin said quietly. The trap closed. 500 human warships appeared from nowhere, materializing around the Keltharian fleet. They had been hiding in quantum space, waiting for this exact moment. The Keltharians found themselves surrounded, outnumbered, and completely unprepared. The battle was over in minutes. The human ships moved with mechanical precision, their AI systems coordinating attacks with inhuman accuracy. Keltharian vessels exploded one after another, unable to match the speed and ferocity of the human assault. When the firing stopped, 200 Keltharian ships floated dead in space. The remaining 100 fled in panic, jumping to faster-than-light speed and abandoning the system. Casualties? Taemin asked. Minor damage to 3 ships, no deaths. 0 deaths, sir. Taemin let out a breath he did not know he had been holding. Send rescue crews for the Keltharian survivors. Treat them well, and send a message to command. Nova Sol is secure. The war spread across 7 star systems. Everywhere the aliens attacked, they found the same thing. Human fleets that seemed to appear from nowhere, fighting with a coordination and efficiency that no biological crew should possess. Captain Hyunwoo earned his reputation at the Battle of Crimson Nebula. The Vren had sent 600 ships to attack a human mining outpost. It should have been an easy victory. The outpost had only 100 defenders, but Hyunwoo understood something the Vren did not. The Crimson Nebula was filled with electromagnetic radiation that would blind most sensors. For aliens who relied on technology to see, it was a dangerous place. For humans who had evolved to navigate by instinct and pattern recognition, it was home. Take us into the nebula, Hyunwoo ordered. Full speed. Sir, our sensors will be useless in there, his tactical officer protested. Exactly, Hyunwoo replied. But so will theirs. And we know how to fight blind. They don't. The human fleet dove into the nebula's heart. The Vren followed, confident in their numbers. Then they lost sensor contact. Their ships became isolated, unable to coordinate, each vessel fighting alone in the red mist. The humans had no such problem. They used short-range communication, visual confirmation, and old-fashioned tactics learned from Earth's naval battles centuries ago. They hunted the Vren ships one by one, appearing from the red clouds, striking, and vanishing before the aliens could respond. When the Vren finally retreated from the nebula, they had lost 400 ships. The humans had lost 12. The Galactic Council watched in growing horror as their most powerful military species were systematically defeated. Ambassador Jiwoo attended every session, sitting quietly in humanity's corner, saying nothing. She did not need to speak. The battle reports spoke for themselves. The Torgan Empire launched what they called the final solution. They would strike at Earth itself. 200 of their best warships, led by their finest admiral, would jump directly to the human homeworld and force a surrender. They never arrived. Captain Hyunwoo's fleet intercepted them in deep space, far from any inhabited system. The battle lasted 6 hours, longer than any other engagement of the war. The Torgans fought bravely, but bravery could not overcome the simple fact that humanity had better ships, better weapons, and better tactics. When it ended, the entire Torgan attack fleet was destroyed. Every single ship. The survivors were rescued and treated well, but the message was clear. Attacking Earth was suicide. The Vren made one final desperate attempt. They tried to ambush humanity's supply lines, hoping to cut off the human fleet from reinforcements and fuel. They sent their entire expeditionary fleet, 800 ships representing the cream of Vren military power. They encountered a human supply convoy defended by 30 escort vessels. The Vren attacked with confidence, expecting an easy victory. Instead, those 30 escort vessels revealed themselves to be something new. Automated warships controlled entirely by AI, with reaction times measured in microseconds and weapons that never missed. The battle lasted 18 minutes. All 800 Vren ships were destroyed or captured. The human escorts suffered minor damage to their paint. After that, the aliens stopped fighting, not because they surrendered officially, but because they simply had no ships left to send. The Drexian hegemony, the Keltharian collective, the Vren swarm, and the Torgan Empire had committed their full military strength to destroying humanity. They had failed completely. General Seok-jin stood in his command center and watched the final battle reports come in. 9 months of war, hundreds of engagements across 7 star systems. The aliens had fielded thousands of ships and millions of soldiers. Human casualties fewer than 2,000 dead. Most of those from accidents, not combat. Alien casualties, too many to count. Entire fleets destroyed, proud military traditions shattered. Centuries of assumed superiority proven wrong. "Sir, we're receiving surrender requests from all 4 enemy nations," his communication officer reported. "They're asking for terms." "Tell them we'll discuss terms at the Galactic Council," Seok-jin replied. "In front of everyone. The galaxy needs to see this." The final council session was unlike anything in galactic history. The council chamber was packed. Every species wanted to witness what happened when humanity finally had its moment. The Drexian ambassador looked old and broken as he approached the council floor. The Keltharian representative wobbled slowly, diminished. The Vren ambassador's usual clicking was subdued. The Torgan delegate walked with his head down. One by one, they formally surrendered to humanity. They agreed to return all stolen colonies. They agreed to pay reparations. They agreed to submit their military forces to inspection and limitation. Ambassador Jiwoo stood to accept their surrender. She looked at each defeated species in turn, her face showing no triumph, no mockery, just tired satisfaction. 73 years ago, humanity joined this council with hope, she said. Her voice carried through the chamber. We believed in cooperation. We believed in peace. We believed that strength and wisdom could coexist. We were wrong. Not about what was possible, but about who possessed those qualities. She gestured to the defeated ambassadors. These species taught us an important lesson. They taught us that respect cannot be asked for. It must be taken. They taught us that patience without power is just weakness with a different name. They taught us that sometimes the only way to achieve peace is to be so strong that war becomes pointless. Jiwoo pulled up a holographic display showing 73 years of council recordings. Every insult, every theft, every moment of cruelty and contempt that humanity had endured. We remembered everything, she said quietly. Every laugh, every slight. Every time you told us to be quiet and accept our place. We remembered and we prepared. Not for revenge, for justice, for the day when humanity would never again have to beg for basic rights. She looked around the chamber at the hundreds of alien species watching. That day is now. Humanity demands full recognition as a galactic power. We demand representation in proportion to our military strength. We demand the right to protect not just our own people. 3 months after the war ended, the Galactic Council met again. But this time everything was different. The meeting took place not at the old Zenith Prime Station, but at a new facility called Unity Station. It orbited a neutral star, and its design included input from 50 different species. Humanity had insisted on that. No single species would dominate the new order. Ambassador Jiwoo walked through Unity Station's halls with a quiet satisfaction. The architecture reflected true cooperation. Sections built for methane-breathing species, connected smoothly to water-filled chambers for aquatic beings. Gravity varied from corridor to corridor to accommodate different physiologies. For the first time, the council was a place where all species could participate equally. She entered the main chamber and took her seat. Not in a small corner anymore. Humanity now sat at the primary table, alongside the Council's founding members. Other species had objected at first. They argued that humanity had not earned such a position through diplomacy and cooperation. "You're right," Jiwoo had told them. "We earned it through strength, because that's the only currency your council respected. If you want a council based on wisdom and cooperation instead of military power, then support our reforms. Otherwise, we'll continue playing by the old rules. And I promise you won't like how that ends." The reforms had passed. Barely. But they had passed. Admiral Young-soo attended the session as a special observer. He was 87 years old now, too old for active duty, but his presence carried weight. He had built the fleet that changed everything. His testimony would be crucial for what came next. The council speaker called the session to order. "Today we address the question of the Drexian hegemony's future. They have surrendered. They have returned all stolen territory. They have begun paying reparations. But many species call for harsher punishment. Some demand the hegemony be dissolved entirely. Ambassador Jiwoo, humanity led the coalition against the Drexians. What is your position?" Jiwoo stood. The Drexian government made a terrible choice. They chose war over diplomacy. They chose theft over negotiation. But the Drexian people are not responsible for their leaders' crimes. We propose the following. The current Drexian government will be removed. Free elections will be held, supervised by neutral observers. The Drexian military will be limited for 20 years with regular inspections. But the Drexian people will keep their sovereignty and their dignity. The chamber erupted in protest. The Keltharian ambassador rose, their bulk wobbling with agitation. "Why show them mercy?" "They showed you none." "Because we're better than they are," Jiwoo replied simply. "Because cruelty breeds more cruelty. Because if we destroy them completely, we become the very thing we fought against. Justice is not the same as revenge." Admiral Young-soo stood slowly, his old bones creaking. "May I speak?" The council speaker nodded. "Of course, Admiral. Your perspective is valued." Young-soo walked to the center of the chamber. Every eye followed him. "I spent 40 years building the fleet that won this war," he said. His voice was rough with age but still strong. "I did it because I saw a galaxy that respected only strength. A galaxy where the weak were prey and the strong were predators. I did not want humanity to be prey, but I also did not want us to become predators." He pulled up a holographic display showing Earth's military buildup. "Every ship we built in secret. Not because we were planning conquest, but because we were planning survival. We studied the galaxy's wars for 73 years. We saw how species who gained power became corrupted by it. We saw how military strength led to military arrogance, which led to military aggression, which led to more war." Young-soo gestured to the Drexian delegation, who sat with heads bowed. The Drexians fell into that trap. They were strong, so they thought they were right. They conquered, so they thought they deserved to conquer more. It's an old story. We've seen it 1,000 times across 1,000 worlds, and we decided that humanity would not repeat it. He turned to face the full council. "That's why we hid our strength. Not just from you, but from ourselves. We built the fleet, but we also built rules for how to use it. We created oversight committees. We established protocols for deploying force. We made sure that no single human could start a war on a whim, because power without wisdom is just cruelty with a bigger hammer." The chamber was silent. Young-soo continued. "The Drexians learned a hard lesson. Let's not waste it. Let's show them, and the galaxy, that strength can serve justice instead of feeding ambition. Let's prove that the strong can protect the weak instead of exploiting them. That's the galaxy I want to live in. That's the galaxy I built those ships to create." He sat down. The silence stretched for a long moment. Then slowly the Mothran speaker began to glow with approval. Other species joined in, expressing support in their various ways. The vote was called. The Drexians would be reformed, not destroyed. Fleet Admiral Jae-hyun addressed the council on the subject of the new security structure. "We propose the creation of a galactic defense force," he explained. "Not an army controlled by one species or alliance, but a unified force with members from all interested parties. Its purpose would be to protect any council member from aggression, regardless of their military strength." "Who would command this force?" the Torgan delegate asked suspiciously. "A rotating command," Jae-hyun replied. "Different species would lead different operations, chosen based on expertise and need. Humanity would contribute ships and personnel, as would any species that wished to participate. No one nation would have permanent control, and if species refused to join, the Vran ambassador clicked. Some of us remember what happened when we opposed humanity. We have concerns about your military power. Jae-hyun's expression softened slightly. I understand your concerns. Let me be clear. Humanity's goal is not domination. We revealed our fleet because we were forced to defend ourselves. Now that the immediate threat is over, we're reducing our active military by 30%. Those ships will be mothballed or converted to peaceful purposes. We keep enough strength to defend ourselves and honor our commitments, but not enough to threaten the galaxy. Why would you reduce your military when you just proved its effectiveness? Someone asked. Because maintaining a massive fleet is expensive, Jae-hyun answered honestly. Because peace is cheaper than war. And because we meant what we said. We don't want to be the galaxy's overlords. We want to be the galaxy's partners. Dr. Yoon-ji presented her research division's findings to the council. For years, her work had been classified. Now, with the war over, humanity was willing to share. During our preparation period, we made significant advances in multiple fields, she explained. Faster-than-light communication, medical technology that can treat injuries across species barriers, agricultural techniques that can work on different world types. We're prepared to share all of this with the council, freely and without restriction. Why? The Keltharian ambassador asked. Such technology could be worth fortunes. You could trade it for power, influence, resources. Yoon-ji smiled. We could, but we won't. Because we learned from watching you. Hoarding technology creates resentment. It creates inequality. It creates the conditions for war. We'd rather have a galaxy of equals than a galaxy of subjects. She pulled up displays showing human innovations. We're offering this freely with one condition: it must be shared equally. No species can monopolize it. No one can weaponize it against others. If you accept these terms, humanity's research becomes the galaxy's research. The offer was unprecedented. Gradually, species began to accept. The sharing began. 6 months after the war ended, Ambassador Jiwoo stood in the council chamber for a ceremony. Unity Station had been completed. The new security protocols were in place. The reformed Drexian government had been elected and recognized. The galaxy had changed more in half a year than it had in the previous century. We have one final matter, the council speaker announced. A proposal from the Smaller Species Coalition. They request that Ambassador Jiwoo be elected as council chairwoman for a 5-year term. Jiwoo was surprised. She had not expected this. I'm honored, she said carefully. But I must ask why. My species just won a war. Doesn't that make me biased? A small rabbit-like species called the Frelin stood to speak. Their representative was barely a meter tall with soft fur and large eyes. Because of how you won, she said in a squeaky voice. You had the power to crush us all. Instead, you chose mercy. You could have demanded submission. Instead, you offered partnership. You proved that strength does not have to mean cruelty. Other small species voiced their support. The ones who had been ignored for centuries. The ones who had watched larger species dominate the council. They saw in humanity a chance for something different. The vote was held. Jiwoo was elected by a significant majority. She accepted with a short speech. I promise to serve all species equally, she said. To protect the weak and restrain the strong. To make this council what it always should have been. A place where wisdom matters more than warships. Fleet Admiral Jae-hyun stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the stars. The ship was returning to Earth for the first time in a year. The crew was eager to see home, to see family, to rest after the long months of war.